I just learned something that made my brain do a double take. You know, one of those, wait, what? Moments that it takes a second or two or 10 or 12 for it to like sink in. It's so unexpected, so different from what I thought I understood. So I have to share it with you. You know that common phrase, that expression to pull oneself up by one's bootstraps? You know, it's generally considered a compliment, right? Did you know that originally that expression was used to talk about something that someone claimed to have done something so ludicrous, so far-fetched, that it's impossible? It was not a compliment. It was like a tall tale. It was often used in the sense of like pulling oneself up over a fence. And maybe this image will help you. Picture that. You're in front of a fence. You can climb a fence. You could, like, jump a fence. You could be pulled over a fence by someone or something on the other side, right? But you cannot pull yourself over a fence. Like, you would have to not be in your body. That doesn't make sense. It's ridiculous. We have evidence of this expression, this type, being used all the way back in the 1800s, and it was attributed, at least for a while, to this book that came out in 1781, The Surprising Adventures of Baron Munchausen, in which the main character pulls himself out of a swamp by his own pigtail. Obviously, it's a collection of tall tales. And today's definition, if you go and look up what that expression means, it says to begin an enterprise or recover from a setback without any outside help. To succeed only by one's own efforts or abilities. How did that happen? Like, apparently a shift occurred sometime in the early 20th century, around starting the 1920s. And so now we have this metaphor that once described something so on its face ridiculous as to be unbelievable. And it has become a compliment. And in fact, a standard that a whole society should strive for. It's used as an image of what it is to be American, to pull oneself up by their bootstraps. How did we get from something ridiculous, impossible, to this is how we should all be. That's just bonkers to me, but also pretty telling. It's a lot like the way that we have trouble hearing some theological terms or biblical terms without all of the extra cultural, traditional baggage that we've been taught. Sometimes we are so sure that we know what something means that we don't actually understand it in the text. Just the plain on its face meaning. For example, the term eternal life. In common usage, the way that we typically hear about that, eternal life could be basically a synonym for life after death, or heaven, you might say. We usually hear about someone gaining eternal life. Someone has gone on to eternal life, meaning they have died, but they were a believer, and we believe that they are continuing to live. But I want to challenge you to listen to this description of eternal life from the Gospel according to John. It's in chapter 17, and I want to challenge you to listen and try to come up with a definition of eternal life based only on this text, not on all the other things that you think you know, that the way we use it, the way you've heard it, but just according to this passage. This is about the final meal that Jesus is sharing with his disciples. In John, we have several chapters worth of what we call final discourse. And at the end of it is this prayer. It's a prayer that Jesus is praying to God, but the disciples get to overhear. After Jesus had spoken these words, he looked up to heaven and said, "Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, so that the Son may glorify you. Since you have given him authority over all people to give eternal life to all whom you have given him. And this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. I glorified you on earth by finishing the work that you gave me to do. So now, Father, glorify me in your own presence with the glory that I had in your presence before the world existed. I have made your name known to those whom you gave me from the world. They were yours, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. Now they know that everything you have given me is from you. For the words that you gave to me, I have given to them, and they have received them, and know in truth that I came from you. And they have believed that you sent me. I'm asking on their behalf. I'm not asking on behalf of the world, but on behalf of those whom you gave me, because they are yours. All mine are yours, and yours are mine. And I have been glorified in them. And now I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, protect them in your name that you have given me, so that they may be one as we are one. Let us hear what the Spirit is speaking to God's people. I know that was a lot, but let's focus in on verse 3. And this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. When we look just at this passage, eternal life doesn't seem to have much to do with life after death. In fact, quite the opposite. Eternal life is a type or quality of living. Living in relationship with God. Knowing that relationship according to the relationship Jesus has with God. A close, personal relationship. Now, your brain may be struggling here. What? It may sound not right to think that eternal life is not the same as life after death or heaven. And I'm not saying that eternal life doesn't have to do with what happens after we die. I do believe it does. But that there's actually a more primary definition, a more straightforward definition here in John's Gospel. Eternal life is something that is available now. The here and now, this life. And it actually is consistent throughout the whole Gospel of John that is how the term is used. If you want to go check, look at chapter 3, where Jesus talks to Nicodemus, tells him that he must be born again to have this gift of eternal life, and that it is, in fact, available to him now. Scholar Mary Kaiya thinks that our identification of eternal life with life after death or heaven is so strong and so misleading that she suggests translating it eternity life, which is kind of a more literal way to approach the Greek that John uses, because it's then less of eternal as an adjective, a word that modifies the noun life in the modern way we think of it, a time-bound or a time-related word, and more of an entirely different quality of existence. She says that John's understanding is that to have eternity life is to participate in the very being of God. That's how John uses the term. To have eternity life is to participate in the very being of God. In this understanding, a better substitute or a synonym for eternal or eternity life would be divine or divinity, a quality of godness, godlikeness. John uses the word abide a lot. Not in this passage, but in the discussion leading up to it, especially chapter 15. There's lots of abides in chapter 15, which is not a really everyday kind of word that we use. But it's trying to convey the sense of dwelling, coexisting. In this part of the discussion, John uses the word to know. Like, they know me, they know you, you know them. And to be in, that expression, they are in me, I am in you, we are in one another. There's just no simple English expression or translation for that. In fact, there's just not in any language a good way to explain this, because at this point, what John is talking about is something that language is only approximating, trying to kind of get a grip around. Because it's essentially something that is, by definition, not graspable by humans. It is other. It is divine. We see this struggle in the passage. You can see that it's difficult to put simply. For example, you may have noticed all of the shifting of verb tenses. There's a lot of past tense, but then future tense, and it's kind of both. And there's, in one scholar's words, slippage in the verb tenses. And it's a function of that we have two different understandings of time, two different timelines at play here. The narrative time, which is where this takes place in the story of Jesus' life and death and resurrection. It takes place before his arrest and subsequent crucifixion. But John is writing this to a community 4 to 6 decades after these events. 40 to 60 years later. some time has passed. So he's describing events in a narrative, but also mindful of Jesus stepping out of time and talking to the people that he's talking to in his time. And in fact, later on in chapter 17, it will be explicit that Jesus is talking to disciples from all future times. So it's hard to describe and package neatly, for sure. And I'm sure some of you at least are thinking, well, this is a interesting little scholarly journey we've been on. But why? Like, for what? I mean, after 2,000 more years have passed, why does it matter how we define eternal life or eternity life? Well, for one thing, it affects how we live. Dr. Sanders says, abiding in Jesus is not biding our time until we can escape our life in the world. Rather, this eternal life begins now with a new identity and profound intimacy of relationship with God. Let's get practical. If we think of our goal as achieving eternal life, and our definition of eternal life is that which only matters after this one is over, we are vulnerable to several very serious lies. They come in many forms, but to put it kind of broadly, one of the biggest lies is that what we do in this life doesn't matter as long as we say we're sorry and we accept Jesus in time, by the deadline, if you would have it. Okay, follow me. This option is particularly attractive to people who don't want to be held accountable for the consequences of their actions, or to actually have to change the way they live. Why? Think about this. This is really useful for people in power, people with a vested interest in the status quo. Because if they can make you believe that this life really isn't that important, and you should only care about where you're going to end up after you die, they can keep you from concentrating on, forcing them to deal with the consequences of their behavior on others in the here and now, which is pretty convenient. Jesus, nowhere ever that I am aware of, says, it's really not that big a deal how you treat your neighbor. Does it sound consistent? Does it sound like something Jesus would say? It's totally okay to manipulate people with fear or force them to see things your way, as long as you're making sure they get saved. No, that's ridiculous. This lie has been responsible for a lot of death and destruction in the name of God. A slightly different iteration of this is the thinking that this life things that are living now, are temporary and therefore not as important as next life things. In ethics, we call this the ends justify the means. Or, it doesn't matter how we get there, only that we reach the goal. Which is problematic, to say the least. Because that thinking that if this world, this life is disposable, is just temporary, passing, then what we do here, the choices that we make, the actions we take, they're going to be erased. So it's not that bad. It's not that big a deal. We prioritize the theoretical next life things. But if we understand eternal life, eternity life, like John does, that's a whole different thing. Because what John is saying is that this eternity life is something that starts now. And there is continuity. It continues. In fact, it continues beyond what we know as physical death, because that is a temporal, limited human term. John says that eternity life is this whole other quality of existence in the presence of God. When we understand that, then we realize that what we do now does matter, because it ends up shaping the future. That it stays. It isn't erased as if this life is disposable, but that being eternity life, living, is something that crosses all realms, times, states of being. How differently would we have to live if we believed that what we did in this life now mattered, regardless of how long it lasts or whether we get to escape it when we die? What would we have to change if we understood that it was our responsibility to alleviate as much suffering as it was in our power to do. That being a disciple who's living an eternity life means being life-giving. That life here and now is valuable and worth living simply because it is life. So, our definition of eternal life matters because it affects our understanding of the goal. And if we adopt John's understanding of eternity life, the goal is not getting out of this life into something other, but it is living in accordance with the image of God, the mind of Christ. And it matters now and forever. Because it isn't just where we end up, it's how we get there. How we get there is the goal. Existence in this different quality, divinity, eternity life, is the goal. I hope that you have found your time this morning to be meaningful, that you have perhaps had a wait, what moment, that leads you to deeper relationship with God. And if I can be of service to you in discerning what God might be calling you to next, my contact information is on the bottom of the prayer request page. Feel free to call or text or email me. I'd love to set up a time to visit with you and help you discern where God might be leading you next in your journey of faith. And if you would like to, if you are ready to make a decision this morning, whether that's to give your life to Christ for the first time, to reaffirm your faith if it has been a windy road and you've been off on some trails, some dusty side paths, and you would like to join with others on the journey, we would be honored if you would consider joining with us, being part of this family of faith. We don't claim to be perfect or have it all figured out, but we are committed to working it out together, to figuring it out as we go. And so if you'd like to make any of those decisions this morning, I invite you to come and share that with me so we can celebrate with you as we all stand and lift our voices in song one more time before we go.
Divine, now hear me. transient dream, when death's cold silent stream shall o'er me roll. Blessed Savior, then in love, fear and distrust remove. Bear me safe above a ransomed soul.
Thank you again for choosing to begin your week in worship with us. People of God, our mission is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. How will we do this? By creating a connected and inclusive, Jesus-centered faith family that transforms lives. Let us go and do as we have said. Go in peace.